The cold metal walls of the Earth shuttle hummed with nervous energy as Lieutenant Commander William Becker straightened his military dress uniform for the third time. His reflection in the polished viewport showed a man trying to look confident, but the slight tremor in his hands betrayed his nerves. At 32, he was the youngest officer ever chosen for such an important mission. Final approach to Paraxia Station, Commander. The pilot's voice crackled through the intercom. Better buckle up. These aliens don't believe in gentle landings. William pressed his face to the window as the massive space station came into view. It was unlike anything he'd ever seen. A sprawling city of black crystal and sharp metal. Edges that seemed to slice through the darkness of space. The structure twisted and turned like a giant's puzzle, with thousands of lights twinkling like deadly stars. Holy ... he whispered, then caught himself. Officers didn't curse, especially. Not when they were about to meet humanity's potential saviors. The shuttle shuddered as it connected to the docking bay. Through the walls, William could hear the hiss of pressure seals and the clank of metal on metal. His heart pounded like a war drum. Everything depended on this mission. Earth needed allies, and the Paraxians were their only hope against the void creatures that had been destroying human colonies one by one. Commander Becker? Ambassador Harrington's voice cut through his thoughts. The older man hurried down the shuttle's narrow corridor, his face pale with worry. We need to talk before we go out there. William followed the ambassador into the small briefing room, where the older man immediately began pacing like a caged animal. Listen carefully, Harrington said, his voice tight with stress. These Paraxians aren't like us. They're warriors, born and bred. They only respect strength and power. One wrong move, one sign of weakness, and they'll send us packing. I understand, sir, William replied, though his stomach felt like it was full of butterflies. I've studied their culture for months. Studying and experiencing are two different things, Harrington warned. Their leader, General Thorne, is a legend among his people. He's fought in more battles than you've had hot meals. He'll be watching you like a hawk watches a mouse. The ambassador handed William a data tablet filled with names, ranks, and pictures. The reception starts in 2 hours. Every important Paraxian will be there. Don't stare. Don't ask personal questions, and whatever you do, don't touch anyone without permission. 2 hours later, William found himself standing in the grandest room he'd ever seen. The Paraxian reception hall stretched out like a cathedral, with ceiling that seemed to reach toward the stars themselves. Massive pillars of black stone supported arches decorated with gold and silver. The air smelled of exotic spices and something else, something that reminded him of lightning before a storm. But it was the Paraxians themselves that took his breath away. They were tall, incredibly tall, with most of them standing nearly 7 feet high. Their skin came in shades of red, from light pink to deep crimson, and their eyes glowed like embers in a fireplace. They moved with the grace of predators, each step calculated and purposeful. Quite a sight, isn't it? Whispered Dr. Collins, a human diplomat standing beside him. Makes you feel a bit like a house cat in a lion's den. William nodded, his eyes scanning the crowd. The Paraxians wore elaborate uniforms covered in medals and decorations. Their conversations were conducted in low, rumbling voices that seemed to vibrate through the floor. Then he saw her. Across the crowded hall, standing near a group of high-ranking officers, was a female Paraxian unlike any other. Her skin was the color of rubies, bright and brilliant in the crystal light. Long silver hair flowed down her back like liquid metal, and she wore a sleek black dress that fit her tall, elegant form perfectly. But it was her eyes that stopped him cold. They were violet, not the usual ember glow of other Paraxians. But a deep, rich purple that seemed to shimmer with hidden secrets. As if she could feel his stare, she turned and looked directly at him across the room. A small smile played at the corners of her mouth before she gracefully turned away, disappearing into the crowd like a ghost. Commander Becker. Ambassador Harrington appeared at his elbow, making him jump. "Come, I want you to meet someone very important." William forced himself to focus as the ambassador led him across the hall. They stopped before a towering figure who seemed to command the attention of everyone around him. "General Thorne," Harrington said formally. "May I present Lieutenant Commander William Becker, our military representative?" William looked up and up, at the most intimidating being he'd ever encountered. General Thorne stood nearly 8 feet tall, his dark crimson skin marked with old battle scars that told stories of countless fights. His black uniform was covered with gold decorations and medals that clinked softly when he moved. His eyes burned like coals in a forge. "General," William said, snapping to attention and offering his best salute. "It's an honor to meet a warrior of your reputation." Those burning eyes studied him for a long moment. "So," Thorne said, his voice like distant thunder, "you're Earth's military representative. I expected someone ... older." The words hung in the air like a challenge. William could feel the eyes of every Paraxian in the area turning toward them. This was a test, he realized. His response would determine how these alien warriors saw not just him, but all of humanity. Age isn't always the best measure of experience. "General," William replied calmly, meeting those fiery eyes without flinching. "Sometimes the youngest soldiers fight the hardest because they have the most to prove." A dangerous silence fell over the nearby crowd. William could hear his own heartbeat in his ears. Had he been too bold? Too aggressive? Then, slowly, General Thorne's stern expression cracked into a sharp-toothed grin. "Well said, Commander," the general boomed, his laughter echoing through the hall. "Perhaps humans have more spine than I've been led to believe." The tension broke like a snapping cable. Conversations resumed around them, and William felt some of the knots in his stomach loosen. He'd passed the first test. The evening continued, with William being introduced to various Paraxian officials. He spoke with admirals and colonels, diplomats and scientists. Each conversation was a careful dance of words, with both sides trying to learn about the other without revealing too much. Throughout it all, he found himself looking for the silver-haired woman. He caught glimpses of her moving through the crowd, always watching him with those remarkable violet eyes. She seemed to glide rather than walk, her presence commanding attention wherever she went. As the reception began to wind down, William excused himself and stepped out onto a balcony that overlooked the vast darkness of space. The stars stretched endlessly before him, a reminder of just how small and fragile Earth really was. Somewhere out there, the void creatures were spreading their destruction, and humanity's only hope lay in convincing these proud warriors to stand with them. "Beautiful, isn't it?" The voice was like music, soft, melodic, with an accent that made each word sound exotic. William turned to find the silver-haired Paraxian woman standing beside him on the balcony. Up close, she was even more stunning. Her violet eyes sparkled with intelligence and something else. Mischief, perhaps. "Very beautiful," William replied, and he wasn't entirely talking about the view. She smiled, and he noticed that her teeth were perfectly white against her ruby-red skin. "I'm Lara," she said, extending her hand in the human custom she'd obviously learned. "And you're the human commander everyone's been talking about." "William Becker," he said, taking her hand. Her skin was warm, warmer than a human's, and incredibly smooth. "And what exactly are people saying about me?" "That you stood your ground against General Thorne," she said, her eyes twinkling. Few beings in the galaxy have the courage to do that. Most visitors are intimidated by my father. William nearly choked on his own breath. Your father? He managed to say. Lara laughed, and the sound was like distant wind chimes. Did I forget to mention that? Yes, General Thorne is my father. Does that make you nervous, Commander? Should it? William asked, surprised by his own boldness. Perhaps, she said, stepping closer. He caught her scent, something like cinnamon and starlight. My father doesn't approve of me talking to off-worlders, especially not human ones. Then why are you talking to me? William asked, genuinely curious. Her smile widened, revealing those perfect teeth. Because, Commander Becker, I've never been very good at following rules. Besides, she added, her voice dropping to a whisper, I find you interesting. Before William could respond, she pressed a small device into his palm. It was warm and smooth, about the size of a coin. My private communication frequency, she explained. Perhaps we could continue this conversation somewhere less public, away from all these watching eyes. With that, she turned and walked away, her silver hair catching the light like liquid mercury. William stood there, staring after her, the device warm in his hand and his heart racing with possibilities he knew he shouldn't be considering. As he watched her disappear into the crowd, William realized that his mission had just become infinitely more complicated and infinitely more dangerous. Chapter 2. Secret Messages. 3 days passed after the reception, and William couldn't stop thinking about Lara. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw her violet gaze and that mysterious smile. The communication device she'd given him sat on his desk, like a tempting piece of forbidden fruit. He tried to focus on his work, reviewing security files, studying Paraxian military tactics, preparing reports for Earth Command. But his mind kept wandering back to that moment on the balcony. The way she'd said his name, the warmth of her hand in his, the dangerous sparkle in her eyes. You're distracted, Ambassador Harrington observed during their morning briefing. Everything all right, Commander? Just tired, sir, William lied, shuffling through his papers. Long days getting used to the station's artificial gravity. Harrington studied him with sharp eyes. Well, snap out of it. We have the joint military exercises coming up next week. The Paraxians will be watching our every move. That evening, alone in his quarters, William finally gave in to temptation. He activated the communication device Lara had given him. His heart pounding as he waited for a response. The device hummed softly, then projected a small hologram of Lara's face. Even in the flickering blue light, she was beautiful. I was beginning to think you'd thrown my gift away, she said, her voice carrying that same musical quality he remembered. I was being careful, William replied. Your father made it clear that humans aren't welcome in his family circle. My father makes many things clear, Lara said with a laugh. That doesn't mean I listen to all of them. Are you free tomorrow evening? I know a place where we can talk without curious eyes watching. William hesitated. Every instinct told him this was dangerous. Ambassador Harrington's warnings echoed in his mind. But something about Lara drew him in like a moth to flame. Where? He asked. The observation lounge on level 7. It's usually empty after 2,000 hours. We can discuss ... cultural exchange. The way she said those last words made it clear she had more than business on her mind. I'll be there, William said, surprising himself with his boldness. The next evening, William made his way through the station's corridors, checking over his shoulder every few steps. The observation lounge was indeed empty when he arrived. Just rows of comfortable chairs facing a massive window that looked out into the star-filled void. He'd been waiting only a few minutes when he heard footsteps behind him. Punctuality, Lara's voice said warmly. A trait I admire in any being. William turned to find her dressed more casually than at the reception. A sleek silver jumpsuit that hugged her tall frame. Her silver hair was braided in an intricate pattern that left her elegant neck exposed. I was taught that keeping a beautiful woman waiting is a crime against nature, William replied, surprised by his own smooth words. Lara's violet eyes sparkled with amusement as she settled into the chair beside him. Flattery will get you everywhere, Commander. William, he corrected. Just William. William, she repeated, his name sounding exotic in her accent. Tell me about Earth. I've seen images in our databases, but I want to hear about it from someone who calls it home. For the next hour, they talked about everything and nothing. William described Earth's blue skies and green forests, the smell of rain on summer mornings, the feel of sand between his toes at the beach. Lara told him about Paraxia's red deserts and crystal cities, the way the twin suns made the sky look like fire at dawn. What's your favorite place on Earth? She asked, leaning closer. There's a lake in the mountains where I grew up, William said, lost in the memory. The water is so clear you can see the bottom even in the deep parts. My father used to take me fishing there when I was young. It sounds peaceful, Lara said softly. Paraxia has no such places. Everything is about strength, conquest, military glory. Sometimes I dream of somewhere quiet, where the only sounds are wind and water. What about your dreams? William asked. What do you want to do with your life? Lara's expression grew serious. I serve as a cultural liaison in the diplomatic corps. It's a position that often puts me at odds with my father's beliefs. He wanted me to join the imperial forces, to follow in his footsteps and become a great warrior. But you chose differently. I've always been more interested in building bridges than burning them, she said, gazing out at the stars. My father sees this as weakness. He believes that strength comes only from conquest and domination. That must create tension between you, William observed. Lara laughed, but there was sadness in it. You have no idea. Being General Thorne's daughter means living under constant watch. Every decision I make, every person I talk to, every choice I make reflects on him, or so he believes. And meeting with a human officer? William asked quietly. Her violet eyes met his, suddenly intense. Would be considered a serious mistake in judgment, perhaps even treason. Then why risk it? William asked, genuinely curious. Lara reached out, her ruby-red fingers lightly touching his hand. The contact sent electricity through his entire body. Because sometimes, William, the most interesting possibilities lie in forbidden places. And because, she paused, as if deciding whether to continue. Because I've never met anyone like you. Their meetings became a regular occurrence over the following weeks. They always met in public spaces, the Arboretum, the library, the cultural center, always under the pretense of cultural exchange. But the growing attraction between them was impossible to ignore. William found himself captivated not just by her beauty, but by her sharp mind and the way she challenged his assumptions about her people. She was nothing like the cold, militaristic Paraxians he'd expected. She was warm, curious, funny, and surprisingly gentle. During one meeting in the station's botanical gardens, surrounded by exotic plants from a dozen worlds, Lara moved closer to him than usual. You know, she said, her voice low and intimate. Paraxians have a saying. The stars themselves conspire to bring together those who are meant to meet. Do you believe that? William asked, acutely aware of how close she was. how her warmth seemed to radiate toward him. "I'm beginning to," she whispered, her violet eyes holding his gaze with an intensity that made his breath catch. The moment stretched between them, electric and dangerous. William felt himself leaning closer, drawn by some invisible force. Her lips parted slightly, and he could smell that exotic scent that always surrounded her. Lady Lara. The harsh voice cut through the moment like a blade. They jerked apart, to find a stern-faced Paraxian officer standing at attention nearby, his ember eyes cold with disapproval. "Commander Vex," Lara said, her voice suddenly formal and distant. "What brings you to the gardens? Your father requests your immediate presence, Lady Lara," the officer said, his gaze flickering between them with obvious suspicion. "There are urgent matters of state to discuss." "Of course," Lara replied, though William could see the frustration in her eyes. "Inform the general that I'll be there shortly." Commander Vex's eyes narrowed as he looked at William. "Immediately, Lady Lara." The general was quite specific about the urgency. After the officer left, Lara turned to William with an expression of worry and frustration. "One of my father's most trusted aides," she explained, "which means he's probably been watching us for some time." "Will this cause problems for you?" William asked, genuinely concerned. She smiled, though it didn't reach her eyes. "Nothing I can't handle. But perhaps we should be more careful in the future. My father's spies are everywhere, and I fear our ... friendship ... may be attracting too much attention." That evening, William was in his quarters reviewing tactical reports when his door chimed. He opened it to find Ambassador Harrington looking unusually serious. "Sir," William said, stepping aside to let him enter. "Commander," Harrington said once the door closed behind him, "we need to discuss your extracurricular activities." William kept his expression neutral. "I'm not sure what you mean, sir." "Don't play games with me, Becca," Harrington said, his voice sharp. "You've been seen with General Thorne's daughter on multiple occasions. Do you have any idea how delicate these negotiations are?" William felt his heart sink. If Harrington knew, then others probably did too. "They're just conversations, sir," William said carefully. "Cultural exchange is ordered." "Cultural exchange?" Harrington snorted. "The way you two look at each other is hardly professional, Commander. I've been doing this job for 20 years, and I know attraction when I see it." The ambassador's expression softened slightly. "Look, I understand the appeal. Paraxian women are exotic, mysterious, beautiful. But General Thorne is old-school traditional. If he thinks you're pursuing his daughter romantically..." The warning hung in the air between them like a threat. "I'll be more careful, sir," William said finally. "See that you are," Harrington replied, moving toward the door. Then he paused and looked back. "And Becca? For what it's worth, I've never seen a Paraxian look at a human the way she looks at you. Just ... Tread very carefully." After Harrington left, William paced his quarters, his mind racing. The rational part of him knew he should end whatever was developing between him and Lara before it destroyed both their careers and the alliance Earth desperately needed. But the other part, the part that had been growing stronger each day, couldn't bear the thought of never seeing her again. His communication device chimed softly. Lara's frequency. "My quarters, level 12, section J7. 1 hour. Come alone. Security blind spot in corridor J7 Alpha." William stared at the message, knowing that this crossed every line he'd sworn not to cross. Meeting her privately in her quarters was dangerous beyond measure. If they were discovered ... and yet, an hour later, he found himself carefully making his way through the station's less traveled corridors. avoiding security cameras and patrol routes he'd memorized during his first week aboard. Level 12 was residential, with private quarters for high-ranking officers and their families. The corridors were dimly lit and luxuriously appointed, with thick carpets that muffled footsteps and artwork from across the Paraxian Empire. He found the security blind spot Lara had mentioned, a small alcove between two major corridors where the surveillance cameras couldn't reach. Her quarters were just beyond, marked with the family crest of General Thorne. William hesitated for only a moment before pressing the entry request. The door slid open immediately, revealing Lara in a simple black robe, her silver hair loose around her shoulders. Without a word, she pulled him inside, the door closing behind them with a soft hiss. "My father knows," she said without preamble, her violet eyes wide with worry. "One of his spies reported our meetings. He single quotes S. Not pleased." "Ambassador Harrington spoke to me as well," William admitted. "Perhaps we should stop meeting. For both our sakes." His words were cut off as Lara stepped forward, pressing her lips to his in a kiss that was electric and desperate. Her skin was warm against his, and she tasted like cinnamon and starlight. When they finally parted, both were breathing heavily. "I don't care what they think," Lara whispered fiercely, her hands gripping his uniform. "For the first time in my life, I've found someone who sees me. Not the general's daughter, not a political pawn, but me. The real me." William cupped her face, the ruby skin smooth and warm beneath his fingers. This could complicate everything. The alliance, our careers, both our worlds. "Everything worth having usually does," she replied, her violet eyes blazing with determination. "I won't let them dictate who I can and cannot care about." She drew him deeper into her quarters, and William found himself in a room that was both alien and somehow familiar. The furniture was elegant but comfortable, with flowing lines and soft fabrics. The walls displayed art from across the galaxy. Some pieces human, he realized with surprise. "You collect human art?" he asked. "I've been fascinated by your culture." "For years," Lara admitted. "Your music, your literature, your art. It's all so full of emotion and hope. So different from Paraxian culture." They talked through the night, sharing stories and dreams, fears and hopes. William learned that Lara had been studying human culture in secret, that she dreamed of visiting Earth someday, of seeing those blue skies and green forests he described. Neither of them noticed the small surveillance drone hovering silently outside her window, its camera recording every word, every touch, every kiss. The device transmitted everything directly to a secure terminal in General Thorne's private office, where the old warrior watched with growing fury. Chapter 3. The General's fury dawn came too soon on Paraxia Station, marked not by the rising sun, but by the gradual brightening of the artificial lights that mimicked a planetary day cycle. William had barely returned to his quarters when the message arrived. A formal military courier delivering a sealed envelope bearing General Thorne's personal insignia. His hands trembled slightly as he broke the crimson wax seal. The message inside was brief but terrifying in its simplicity. 0800 hours. My office. Come alone. General Thorne. William stared at the message, his stomach dropping like a stone. There was no mistaking the tone. This wasn't a request or an invitation. It was a command, and probably a death sentence. He showered and dressed in his full formal uniform, every button polished, every crease sharp. If he was going to face the most dangerous warrior in the Paraxian Empire, he would do it with dignity. Walk to General Thorne's office felt like a march to his execution. Other beings in the corridors seemed to sense something was wrong. Conversations stopped when he passed. and more than one Paraxian officer gave him looks that ranged from curious to pitying. Commander Vex, the same stern-faced officer who had interrupted them in the gardens, was waiting outside the general's office. His ember eyes held no warmth as he looked William up and down. "Commander Becker," he said formally, "the general is expecting you." The officer led him through a series of security checkpoints, each more intimidating than the last. Weapons scanners, biometric readers, and guards who looked like they could snap him in half with their bare hands. Finally, they reached a massive door made of what looked like black volcanic stone. "Enter," came a voice from within, deep, commanding, and filled with barely controlled rage. William stepped inside, and the door sealed behind him with a finality that made his skin crawl. The office was like something from a nightmare, stark and militaristic, with walls displaying weapons from dozens of conquered worlds. Trophies of war, each one representing a victory over someone who had dared to challenge Paraxian might. General Thorne stood with his back to the door, his massive frame silhouetted against a viewport that showed the endless stars. He was even more imposing in his private domain, radiating an aura of power and barely contained violence. "Commander Becker," he said without turning around. "Punctual. Good. I despise beings who waste my time." "You requested my presence, General," William replied, standing at rigid attention and trying to keep his voice steady. Thorne turned slowly, and William felt his blood freeze. The general's eyes burned with a fury unlike anything he'd ever seen. The rage of a father whose daughter had been dishonored, of a warrior whose pride had been challenged. "Do you know what I was doing 30 years ago, Commander?" Thorne asked, his voice deceptively calm. "No, sir," William replied, though he suspected he didn't want to know. "I was fighting the hegemony wars," Thorne continued, beginning to pace like a caged predator. 17 different campaigns across 9 star systems. I watched comrades die beside me. I bled on alien soil. I sacrificed everything, my youth, my health, my peace of mind, to build the greatest military power this sector has ever known. He stopped directly in front of William, towering over him by nearly 2 feet. "I did all of this so that my daughter could live in a universe where the Paraxian Empire was feared and respected, so that she could hold her head high as the daughter of a conqueror." The general's voice rose to a roar. "I did not spend 3 decades carving out an empire just to watch some human whelp seduce my only child." William maintained his composure despite the verbal assault. "With respect, General, my relationship with Lara is—" "Silence," Thorne bellowed, his voice echoing off the walls. "I know exactly what your relationship is, human. Did you think I wouldn't have my daughter's quarters monitored? Did you think I would allow my flesh and blood to be dishonored by an alien?" The general moved to his desk and activated a holographic display. William's heart sank as he recognized the feed from the surveillance drone. Images of him and Lara in her quarters, talking, laughing, kissing. "I have recordings of everything," Thorne said, his voice now cold and deadly. "Every word, every touch, every moment of weakness." William felt a flash of anger break through his fear. "There has been no dishonor, General. My intentions toward your daughter are honorable." Thorne laughed, a harsh sound void of any humor. "Honorable? You sneak around like a thief in the night, meeting in shadows and dark corners. You seduce an imperial princess while pretending to be a diplomat. Where is the honor in that? We met in secret because we knew this would be your reaction." William shot back, his own temper flaring. "You judge me based on my species rather than my character." The words hung in the air like a challenge. For a moment, William thought the general might actually strike him down where he stood. Thorne's hand moved to the ceremonial blade at his hip, and his eyes blazed with murderous intent. "Bold words," the general said slowly. "From a man in your position." He circled William like a predator studying prey. "In the old days, I would have had you executed for daring to touch a high-born Paraxian woman. But times have changed, and diplomacy," he spat the word like a curse, "demands a certain restraint." "So what happens now?" William asked, surprised by his own boldness. "Now," Thorn said, returning to his desk, "you have a choice. You can end this foolish infatuation. Immediately return to your duties and pretend this never happened. Or what?" William demanded. Thorn's smile was cold and predatory. "Or you can prove you're worthy of my daughter." William blinked in surprise. "I don't understand." "It's quite simple," the general said, settling into his chair. "You claim to be an honorable man, a worthy mate for an imperial princess. Very well. Prove it." He activated another holographic display, this one showing star charts and military formations. "The hegemony has been building up forces in the Outer Rim. Our intelligence suggests they're planning a major offensive against our shipping lanes. I need someone to lead a reconnaissance mission into their territory." William studied the display, his military training automatically analyzing the tactical situation. "That's a suicide mission, General. The hegemony has been at war with the Empire for decades. They'll shoot first and ask questions later." "Exactly," Thorn said with satisfaction. "A mission that would require tremendous courage, skill, and honor to complete successfully. The kind of mission that would prove a man's worth beyond any doubt. And if I refuse, then you'll be transferred back to Earth immediately," Thorn replied. "The alliance negotiations will continue, but you'll have no part in them. And you'll never see my daughter again." William felt the trap closing around him. "You're asking me to choose between my life and my love for Lara." "I'm offering you the chance to prove you deserve her," Thorn corrected. "Any coward can speak words of love. Only a true warrior can back them up with actions." The general leaned forward, his eyes burning with intensity. "Complete this mission successfully, and I'll give you my blessing to court my daughter properly. Fail, and the question becomes moot." "How do I know you'll keep your word?" William asked. "Because despite what you think of me, human, I am a man of honor," Thorn replied. "If you prove yourself worthy through deed rather than word, I will respect that. But if you refuse this challenge, you'll have shown yourself to be exactly what I suspect, a coward who hides behind pretty speeches." William stared at the star charts, his mind racing. The mission was indeed dangerous, possibly suicidal. But it was also a chance to prove himself not just to Thorn, but to the entire Paraxian Empire. If he succeeded, he would earn respect that could never be taken away. "When do I leave?" he asked. Thorn's expression showed the first hint of approval William had ever seen from him. "The mission departs in 3 days. You'll be given command of a small reconnaissance vessel and a hand-picked crew. Your objective is to penetrate hegemony space, gather intelligence on their military buildup, and return with proof of their plans. And if I don't return, then my daughter will mourn you as a hero rather than despise you as a coward," Thorn replied. "Which would you prefer?" William straightened his shoulders. "I'll need access to all available intelligence on hegemony forces and defenses." "It will be provided," Thorn said, standing. "But understand this, Commander. This mission will test every skill you possess. You'll be outnumbered, outgunned, and operating in hostile territory with no backup. Only your wits, your courage, and your determination will see you through." "I understand, General." "Do you?" Thorn asked, moving close again. "Because if you fail, if you're captured or killed, It won't just be your life that's forfeit. The information you carry could compromise our entire defensive strategy. The fate of both our peoples may rest on your shoulders. William met the general's burning gaze without flinching. I won't fail, sir. We'll see, Thorn said. Dismissed, Commander. Use the next 3 days wisely. They may be your last. As William left the office, his mind was already working on the challenges ahead. The mission was dangerous, possibly impossible, but it was also an opportunity. If he could succeed where others might fail, he would earn something more valuable than gold or glory. The respect of the most powerful warrior in the Phyrexian Empire, and the right to love his daughter. But first, he had to tell Lara what was happening, and somehow, he had to convince her to wait for him, no matter how long it took. William held his ground. What do you want from me, General? Want? Thorn's lips curled into a predatory smile. I want to see if there's anything of worth beneath that human exterior. I want to know if you're even remotely deserving of a daughter. Of Phyrexian Annam. He activated a holographic display on his disc showing a military compound. This is Camp Infernus, the elite training facility for the Imperial Special Forces, the most brutal military training program in the known galaxy. Williams studied the image, recognition dawning. You want me to enlist? Thorn finished for him. As a common recruit, no rank, no privileges. You think you can seduce my daughter without consequences? Then earn the right to be with her. Prove yourself with blood and sweat. William stared at the general, processing the demand. It was outrageous, potentially career-ending. And yet, and if I succeed, if I complete the training, Thorn's expression was unreadable. Then perhaps you will have earned the right to court her properly in the open with honor. And the diplomatic mission, my duties to Earth. I've already spoken with your ambassador, Harrington. He agrees that this arrangement could strengthen our alliance. Consider it a cultural exchange program. Thorns. Smile was gold. Of course, if you refuse, you'll be on the next transport back to Earth, and you'll never see Lara again. William knew he was being manipulated, cornered into an impossible choice. And yet, the challenge appealed to something primal in him. A chance to prove himself not just to Thorn, but to himself. How long is the training program? 6 months, Thorn replied. If you survive, I'll need to speak with Lara before I decide. The general's eyes flashed. No, you will decide now without her influence. This is between you and me. Soldier to soldier. William met Thorn's gaze unflinchingly. Then I accept your challenge, General. I'll join your training program. Something like respect flickered briefly in Thorn's eyes. Report to the military shuttle bay at 600 tomorrow. Bring nothing but yourself. He turned away. A clear dismissal. And Commander, only 1 in 10 recruits completes the program. The rest wash out or worse. William was escorted from the office, his mind racing. He needed to find Lara to explain what had happened. But as he turned a corner, he found his path blocked by Ambassador Harrington and 2 security officers. I'm sorry, Becca, Harrington said, looking genuinely regretful. General Thorn's orders. You're confined to quarters until departure tomorrow. Don't you agree to this? William asked incredulously. Harrington sighed. Alliance with Phyrexian is too important. Yeah. And frankly, this solves our problem. Either you wash out and come home, or you succeed and have the general's blessing. Either way, the diplomatic mission continues without complications. Back in his quarters, under guard, William paced like a caged animal. His communication device had been confiscated, leaving him no way to contact Lara. As night fell, he stood. At his viewport, wondering if he'd made the right choice. A soft knock at his door broke his reverie. Opening it, he found a young human ensign standing nervously in the corridor. "Sir, I'm supposed to be delivering your evening meal," the ensign said loudly, then lowered his voice to a whisper. "Lady Lara asked me give you this." He slipped a small data chip into William's hand with the tray. Once alone, William inserted that chip into his personal tablet. Lara's face appeared, her violet eyes bright with unshed tears. "William, I just learned what my father has done." Her recorded message began. "This is my fault. I should have been more careful. The training program at Camp Infernus is brutal. Paraxians die there, but I know you. Your strength, mate, your determination." She paused, composing herself. "If you go through with this, I'll be waiting. And if you choose to return to Earth, I'll understand. Either way, know that what was shared was real." The message ended, leaving William staring at the blank screen. In that moment, his resolve hardened. Think he would survive Camp Infernus. He would earn the right to be with Lara properly, and perhaps, in doing so, he would forge a stronger bond between their peoples. As dawn broke, William was escorted to the military shuttle bay. General Thorne was there along with a contingent of Paraxian officers. "Last chance to back out, human," Thorne said, his voice carrying across the bay. William stepped forward, his head high. "I'm ready, General." A flicker of something, perhaps surprise, perhaps respect, crossed Thorne's face. "We shall see." As William boarded the shuttle that would take him to Camp Infernus, he caught a glimpse of silver hair in the observation deck above. Lara stood watching, her hand pressed against the glass. He nodded once, a promise before the shuttle doors closed behind him. The transport shuttle descended through Paraxia's atmosphere, the planet's twin red suns casting an ominous glow across the volcanic landscape below. William stood at the viewport, watching as Camp Infernus came into view. A sprawling military compound nestled between active lava flows and jagged obsidian mountains. "Impressed, human?" asked their Paraxian pilot, his tone mocking. "Most recruits start shaking when they see it. It's certainly dramatic," William replied evenly, refusing to show intimidation. The shuttle landed with a harsh thud on a black stone landing. Pad. As the doors hissed open, a wave of sulphurous heat slammed into William. The air was thinner than he was accustomed to, and significantly hotter. At least 110 F by his estimation. A broad-shouldered Paraxian officer stood waiting, his crimson skin darkened by the twin suns, his face a mask of contempt. "So this is the human?" he growled, circling William like a predator. "General Thorne's special project. Lieutenant Commander William Becker, Earth Defense Force." William introduced himself, standing at attention. The officer barked a laugh. "Not anymore. Here, your recruit Becker. Nothing more." He leaned in, his ember eyes burning. "I am Commander Krell, master of this training facility. My job is to break you human. To prove to General Thorne that his daughter deserves better than alien filth. William met his gaze unflinchingly. "Then I look forward to disappointing you, Commander." Krell's eyes narrowed. "We'll see." He turned to address the shuttle's other passengers, 12 Pion recruits who had been silently assessing William. "Welcome to Camp Infernus. For the next 6 months, this will be your hell. 2-3 of you will wash out. Some will die. Those who survive will become Thelite of the Imperial forces." He pointed to a distant barracks. "You have 5 minutes to get there. Starting now." The Paraxian recruits immediately broke into a run. William followed, quickly realizing the disadvantage he faced. That planet's higher gravity made each step a struggle. In the thin, hot air burned his lungs. By the time he reached the barracks, last but only by seconds, his muscles screamed in protest. Inside, the recruits were already claiming bunks, and William moved toward an empty one, only to be blocked by a massive Pyrex iron with tribal markings etched into his crimson skin. "Ah, this section isn't for weaklings," the recruit growled. "Especially not pink-skinned aliens." William assessed his options. Backing down would establish him as prey. Fighting might earn respect or get him killed before training even began. "I didn't see your name on it," he replied calmly, holding his ground. The barracks fell silent as the other recruits watched with interest. The marked Paraxian's lips curled back, revealing sharp teeth. "I am Drav, son of Thifra Plains. 3 generations of warriors in my bloodline, and you are..." "Nothing but General Thorn's joke." "Funny," William said. "I don't her laughter." Drav lunged forward faster than William anticipated. A crimson fist connected with his jaw, sending him staggering back. The Paraxian's strength was formidable, but William had trained in Earth's special forces. He recovered quickly, ducking under Drav's neck swing and delivering a precise strike to Thelian's solar plexus. Drav grunted in surprise but didn't fall. Instead, he grabbed William by the throat, lifting him off the ground. "You'll die here, human," he snarled. Fighting against the crushing grip, William drove his knee up, connecting with a sensitive nerve cluster. Unique to Paraxian anatomy, a detail he'd studied during his diplomatic preparation. Drav howled, his grip loosening enough for William to break free. "Enough," Commander Krell's voice boomed from the doorway. "Save it for training." His eyes gleamed with malicious amusement. "Though I'm impressed you're still conscious, human. Perhaps this won't be as quick as I thought." The days that followed were brutal, beyond anything William had experienced. The training regiment seemed specifically designed to exploit human physiological weaknesses. Endurance drills in the scorching heat, strength tests under crushing gravity combat, training against naturally stronger opponents. Each night, William collapsed onto his bunk, muscles trembling with exhaustion, his body covered in bruises and burns. But each morning he rose before the others, pushing through additional exercises to adapt to Paraxia's harsh conditions. Slowly, imperceptibly, he began to change. His body acclimated to the gravity and heat. His reflexes quickened to match Paraxian. Speed. He learned to use his smaller size as an advantage in combat, employing techniques the larger Paraxians found difficult to counter. What surprised him most was the gradual shift in the other recruits' attitudes. Initial contempt gave way to reluctant acknowledgement as he refused to break. Even Dra, after watching William complete a particularly grueling lava field exercise, offered a grunt that might have been respect. 2 weeks in, during a rare rest period, William sat alone in the mess hall, forcing down the spicy Paraxian rations. That still Bernardus human palate. A shadow fell across his table as another recruit, a leaner Paraxian named Trick, sat opposite him. "You're still here," Tra observed, his tone neutral. "Most thought you'd wash out the first day." "Sorry to disappoint," William replied. Tarek's lips twitched in what might have been a smile. "They say you're here 4th General's daughter, that you're trying to earn the right to court her." William paused, then nodded. "That's right. She must be something special for you to endure this." An image of Lara flashed in William's mind. Her silver hair, her violet eyes, her smile. Trick studied him for a moment. "You know, humans have a reputation among our people. They say you're physically weak but surprisingly resilient, that you compensate for your limitations with unusual adaptability." He nodded toward the training field visible through the window. "Perhaps there's truth to it. It wasn't friendship. Not yet, but it was beginning. As William returned to his bunk that night, he allowed himself a small smile. He was surviving. And somewhere above on Paraxia Station, Lara was waiting. 3 months into training, Camp Infernus had transformed William. His body had hardened, adapting to Pyxia's punishing environment. The brutal regimen that once left him gasping for breath now merely pushed his limits. Even Commander Krell had been forced to acknowledge his progress, though the Paraxian officer's contempt remained palpable. What truly surprised William was the shifting dynamic among the recruits. What began as tolerance from Trick had evolved into a tentative alliance. 3 others, Cora, the only female Paraxian recruit, Vex, a taciturn sniper, and even Dra, his initial antagonist, had gradually accepted his presence in their training squad. The human keeps up better than Maddox, Drev had grudgingly admitted, after William outperformed one of the Paraxian recruits on an infiltration exercise. Today's challenge was the Gauntlet, a notorious obstacle course running through an active lava field. Recruits were divided into teams of 5, with the slowest team facing punishment detail. Team assignments, Commander Krell announced, his ember eyes gleaming with malice as they settled on William. Becca, you're with Maddox, Jan, Loris, and Pax. William concealed his dismay. He'd been deliberately paired with the 4 weakest recruits, a transsaffron attempt to ensure his failure. Problem human? Krell asked, noticing William's expression. No, sir, William replied evenly, just eager to begin. As the teams prepared at the starting line, Trick approached. Krell stacked the odds, he said quietly. AMEDDX still hasn't recovered from the night drill injuries, and Pax nearly washed out last week. Then I'll just have to carry them for now, William replied, studying the course ahead. A treacherous path of unstable rock bridges over bubbling lava, climbing walls slick with volcanic ash in narrow tunnels venting superheated steam. Trick hesitated, then pressed something into William's hand. A small vial containing a viscous blue liquid, thermal protection gel. It won't last long, but it might help with the steam vents. Before William could thank him, Trick rejoined his team. The unexpected alliance was growing stronger. Despite Krell's efforts to isolate him, the Gauntlet lived up to its reputation. Halfway through, Maddox collapsed from heat exhaustion. With hesitation, William hoisted the larger Paraxian onto his shoulders, ignoring the burning in his muscles as he continued forward. Leave me, Maddox gasped. Save yourself the punishment. Not happening, William grunted, pushing through the pain. We finished together. When they finally crossed the finish line last, but with all team members intact, William expected Krell's usual tirade. Instead, he found the commander engaged in conversation with an unexpected visitor, General Thorne. The general's cold gaze swept over the exhausted recruits before settling on William, who still supported the awakened Maddox. Commander Krell, Thorne said, his voice carrying across the training ground. I understood this exercise was designed to test individual strength and teamwork. Yet I observe a human recruit carrying one of my soldiers. Krell stiffened. The humans team performed poorly, General. Ace expected, did they? Thorne approached, studying William with calculating eyes. What I see is a recruit who refused to abandon a teammate despite clear disadvantage. He turned to Krell. Perhaps your methods require reassessment, Commander. Late evening, as William sat alone in the barracks, tending to his burns, the door opened. To admit General Thorne himself. The other recruits immediately stood at attention, but Thorne waved them out. 3 months, the general said once they were alone. Longer than I expected you to last, human. Sorry to disappoint you, sir, William replied, not bothering to hide his sarcasm. To his surprise, Thorn's lips curved in a slight smile. On the contrary, you've proven more resilient than anticipated. He paced the length of the barracks. Commander Krell reports that you've integrated well with the other recruits. Unusual for an outsider. We all bleed the same under the lash, sir. Thorn studied him thoughtfully. My daughter continues to ask about your progress. William's heart quickened at the mention of Lara. And what do you tell her? The truth that you serve against considerable odds. Thorn's expression hardened. She remains convinced of your worthiness. I remain skeptical. With respect, General, your skepticism is my least concern. I'm her for Lara, not your approval. Thorn's eyes flashed dangerously. Bold words from a recruit. You didn't bring me here for meekness, William countered. A tense silence stretched between them before Thorn spoke again. There will be a brief shore leave for all recruits who survive tomorrow's evaluation. 48 hours. He moved toward the door, then paused. My daughter will be visiting the capital city during that time. A coincidence, of course. William understood the unspoken message. A test, perhaps, or a concession. Of course, sir. After Thorn departed, William sat processing this unexpected development. Leave meant seeing Lyra again, a prospect that both elated and concerned him. Their relationship had begun in secrecy and passion. How would it fare now under Thorn's watchful eye? The following day's evaluation was the most grueling yet. A 20-mile forced march through Paraxia's badlands carrying full combat gear, followed by a live fire exercise against automated defense drones. By the end, 3 more recruits had washed out, but William remained standing, his determination unbroken. As the surviving recruits prepared for shore leave, Tarek approached William. Sir, you'll be seeing the General's daughter. News travels fast, William observed. Trick shrugged. Few secrets in a barracks, he hesitated, then added, a word of advice? Paraxian women value strength, but they respect honesty above all. Don't pretend to be something you're not. I never have, William replied. The capital city of Perixprime was a stark contrast to Camp Infernus, a gleaming metropolis of obsidian towers and crimson light, teeming with Paraxians going about their daily lives. William, dressed in the simple grey uniform of a recruit, felt conspicuously alien as he made his way to the coordinates Lara had sent. He found her waiting in a secluded garden overlooking the city, her silver hair shimmering in the light of the setting suns. When she turned and saw him, her violet eyes widened, taking in his transformed appearance. William, she breathed, closing the distance between them. Her fingers traced the new scar along his jawline. What have they done to you? Made me stronger, he replied, drawing her close. The feel of her in his arms again was intoxicating after months of harsh deprivation. Worth every moment. Their kiss was hungry, passionate, a release of months of separation and longing. When they finally parted, both breathless, Leore's shimmered with emotion. I've missed you, she whispered. Every day I've thought of you down there, enduring me. Father's challenge. And I've thought of you, William replied. Every time I wanted to quit. They spent hours talking, William describing the brutal training while Lara updated him on diplomatic developments between Earth and Paraxia. As night fell, she led him to a private apartment overlooking the city. My personal retreat, she explained, closing the door behind them, away from her father's surveillance. In the privacy of her apartment, their reunion deepened. Months of separation dissolved in a haze of desire as they explored each other with newfound urgency. Their bodies moved together, in perfect harmony, transcending the differences between their species as they surrendered to passion. Afterward, lying in each other's arms, Lara traced the constellation of scars across William's chest. 3 more months, she murmured. Then you'll complete the training. And then? William asked, voicing the question that had sustained him through the harshest days. Lara's violet eyes met his. Then we faced whatever comes next together. Neither of them spoke of the challenges still ahead, the completion of his training, General Thorne's continued opposition, the complications of an inter-species relationship in a xenophobic society. For now, it was enough to have found each other again, to reaffirm the connection that had driven William to enter the crucible of Camp Infernus. As dawn broke over Parix Prime, casting city in crimson light, they knew their brief reunion was ending. Soon, William would return to the brutal regiment of training, and Lara to her diplomatic duties. That something had changed. A deeper bond had formed, one that would sustain them through the trials to come. "I love you," William said simply, the words he'd held back until now. Lara smiled, pressing her forehead to his in the traditional Paraxian gesture of deepest affection. "And I, you, my stubborn human warrior." 2 weeks after returning to Camp Infernus, William received an encrypted message from Lara that changed everything. "We need to talk urgently." The cryptic nature of the message left them anxious throughout the day's training exercises. That evening, using a communication terminal during his allotted personal time, he connected with Lara via secure channel. Her face appeared on the screen, her violet eyes filled with a mixture of fear and wonder. "William," she said softly, glancing over her shoulder to ensure privacy. "Something's happened. Something unexpected." His heart raced. "Are you all right?" And she hesitated, then met his gaze directly. "I'm pregnant, William, with your child." The world seemed to stop. That's impossible," he stammered. "Human and Paraxian genetics are more incompatible than anyone realized," she finished. "The medical scans confirm it. Our physiologies are different, but at the cellular level, we're remarkably similar." Her hand moved unconsciously to her abdomen. "The doctors say it's a miracle. The first known human Paraxian hybrid." William sat in stunned silence, processing the implications. "A child, his child with Lara. My father doesn't know yet," she continued. "But he will soon. I can't hide this forever." "What do you want to do?" William asked, his voice steady despite the turmoil inside. Lara's expression softened. "You want this child, William. Our child. But I'm afraid of what will happen when the news spreads. There are conservative Ixones in our government who believe in racial purity. They'll see this as an abomination. And your father? He'll be furious," she admitted. "But beneath his prejudice, Hevalu's family above all. I have to believe that will matter." Before William could respond, a warning flashed on the terminal. Someone was overriding the security protocols. The screen split to reveal Commander Krell's scowling face. "Touching conversation," he sneered. "The general will be most interested to hear about this development." The connection terminated abruptly, leaving Williams staring at a blank screen. Krell had been monitoring their communication, which meant Lara's secret was no longer safe. The following morning, instead of the usual training regimen, William was summoned to Commander Krell's office. There he found not only Krell, but also a Paraxian officer he didn't recognize. Tall, aristocratic, with unusually pale crimson skin and cold eyes. "Recruit Becker," Krell said with malicious satisfaction. "Meet Colonel Rath, military attaché to the Imperial Court, and until recently, Lady Lyra's betrothed." William kept his expression neutral despite the shock. Lara had never mentioned a former betrothal. Rath corrected, his voice cultured but laced with disdain. A political arrangement dissolved when the general's daughter developed her fascination with alien specimens. Colonel Rath has graciously offered to oversee your final evaluation, Krell continued. Given the acceleratetamil accelerated. William questioned. Rath circled him slowly. In light of certain biological developments, General Thorne has decided to expedite your training. You'll face the final trials tomorrow, 3 months ahead of schedule. The implication was clear. They knew about Lyra's pregnancy, and we're ensuring William would fail before the news became public. The crucible of fire awaits you, human, Krell added with a cold smile. No recruit has completed it in under 6 months of training. You've had barely 3. William met their gazes steadily. Then I'll be the first. That night, as William prepared for what would likely be the most challenging day of his life, Trick and Drav entered the barracks. Their expressions were grim. We heard, TK said without preamble, about the accelerated trial and about Lady Lyra. William tensed. How many know? Just us for now, Drav replied. Krell's keeping it quiet until after your failure. You mean my success, William corrected. The 2 Paraxians exchanged glances. The crucible isn't just difficult, Becca. Tar explained. It's specifically designed to push Paraxian physiology to its limits for a human. I didn't have a choice, William interrupted. Lyra is carrying my child. I need to complete this training and claim my right to be with her before the political fallout begins. To his surprise, Draft nodded with something like respect. Then you'll need help. He produced a small vial containing a phosphorescent green liquid. Thermal enhancer. It will temporarily increase your heat resistance. Won't last long, but might give you an edge in the lava fields. Trick added his own contribution. A detailed map of the crucible course. Memorize this. The optimal path isn't always obvious. William studied his unlikely allies with newfound appreciation. Why are you helping me? Draw's expression hardened. Because Wrath is a political snake who cares more about his bloodline than Lady Lyra's happiness. And because you have earned your place among us, human. Besides, Trick added with a rare smile. Imagine Krell's face when you succeed. Dawn broke over Camp Infernus with an ominous red glow. The entire camp had assembled to witness the crucible, a treacherous course through the most dangerous terrain on Paraxia, culminating in a combat trial against the camp's elite instructors. General Thorne himself had arrived to observe, his face an unreadable mask as William took his position at the starting line. Beside him stood Colonel Rath, whispering something in the general's ear that made Thorne's eyes narrow as they fixed on William. Begin, Commander Krell shouted, and William launched himself into the course. What followed was a blur of pain and determination. He navigated razor-sharp volcanic glass fields, crossed chasms of bubbling lava, and fought through chambers of toxic gas. The thermal enhancer Dira had provided saved him from third-degree burns as he traversed the superheated tunnel, and TK's map guided him through a maze of deadly pitfalls. By the time he reached the combat arena for the final trial, William was exhausted, but still standing. The assembled recruits watched in stunned silence as he faced not 1 but 3 combat instructor simulation tunnel. A clear violation of protocol orchestrated by Krell and Rath. Drawing on every lesson learned during his months of training, William fought with a combination of Earth combat techniques and Paraxian battle strategies. He used his smaller size and greater agility to his advantage, turning the instructor's strength against them. When the final instructor fell, the arena erupted in cheers from the recruits. William stood victorious, bloodied but unbowed, his eyes finding General Thorne. In the observation deck, the general's expression revealed nothing, but beside him, Rath's face contorted with fury. The political officers stormed from the observation deck, his plans for William's failure in ruins. As medics attended to his injuries, William received Another encrypted message from Lyra. Father knows everything. Coming to camp. Be ready for anything. Night had fallen over Camp Infernus when William detected movement outside the medical facility, still recovering from the crucible. He'd been ordered to remain under observation, ostensibly for his health, but more likely to keep him contained, until General Thorne arrived. The door slid open silently, revealing that a medical officer, but Lyra, her silver hair gleaming in the dim light, her crimson skin flushed with urgency. "William," she whispered, rushing to his side. "We need to. Leave now." He took her hands, feeling their warmth against his skin. "What's happening?" "Conrad has convinced several officers that our child represents a threat to Paracatchian genetic purity," she explained, her violet eyes darting nervously toward Theodore. "They're coming to take you into protective custody, which means you'll never be seen again." William stood, ignoring the protest of his battered muscles. "What about your father? He's en route from the capital, but Rath's men will reach us first." She pressed a small plasma pistol into his hand. "I won't let them take you." The fierce protectiveness in her voice stirred something primal in William. This was the mother of his child, ready to fight against her own people, to defend him. "We're not running to," he decided, checking the weapons charge. "If we flee, we'll always be looking over our shoulders. This ends tonight." Liara's expression shifted, from surprise to determination. "Then we fight together." They didn't have to wait long. Within minutes, the facility's perimeter alarm silenced, the first sign of Rath's approach. William positioned himself near the door, while Lyra took cover behind a medical console, her own weapon ready. The door burst open and Colonel Rath entered with 4 armed guards, his pale crimson face contorted with disgust when he saw William, standing defiantly before him. "The human specimen," Rath sneered, "and the General's wooed daughter. How convenient to find you both together." "This is treason, Rath," Lyra said coldly. "My father will have your head." "Your father," Rath replied, "will thank me for preserving the purity of our bloodline. Once the human is eliminated, we can deal with your unfortunate condition." William tightened his grip on the pistol. "You've made 2 critical mistakes, Colonel. First, you underestimated how far I'd go to protect Lyra and our child. Second, you forgot I just passed the crucible." Rath laughed. "And what does that signify, human?" "It means," came a deep voice from behind Rath, "that he is now officially a member of the Imperial Special Forces under my direct command." General Thorne stood in the doorway, his imposing figure silhouetted against the corridor lights, flanked by TK, Drav, and a squad of elite guards. "Father!" Lior exclaimed. Rath spun around, his confidence faltering. "General, I can explain." "Explain why you're threatening my daughter." Thorne interrupted, his voice dangerously calm. "Or explain your conspiracy to assassinate a soldier who has earned his place in my ranks." "The human has corrupted your daughter," Rath protested. "The abomination she carries is my grandchild," Thorne finished, his ember eyes flashing with controlled rage. "The first of a new lineage that will strengthen our empire." The general stepped forward, and Rath instinctively retreated. "I've spent my career fighting for Paraxian supremacy, Colonel. I believed our way was the only way." His gaze shifted to William. "Then this human proved me wrong. He endured trials designed to break Paraxian warriors, have formed bonds with his fellow recruits that transcended species. He showed loyalty, courage, and honor, the very values we claim to uphold." Thorne turned back to Rath. "You, on the other hand, conspired against your superior officer and threatened a pregnant woman, my daughter, all to preserve your outdated notions of purity." With a subtle gesture from Thorne, his guards moved to surround Rath and his men. "Colonel." Rath, The general pronounced formally. "You are hereby stripped of rank and charged with treason against the imperial throne." As the guards led Wrath away, his face contorted with impotent rage, Leah rushed to her father's side. "I don't understand," she said. "I thought you'd be furious about the baby." Thorne's stern expression softened slightly. "I was, until I received the genetic analysis." He glanced at William. The medical team was fascinated by the perfect fusion of human and Perexiandina, something our scientists believed impossible. They believed this child may carry unique strengths from both bloodlines. He placed a hand on Lera's shoulder. "Our empire has always valued strength above all else. What could be stronger than a child who unites the best qualities of two warrior races?" William approached cautiously. "Does this mean you approve of our relationship, General?" Thorne studied him for a long moment. "You entered my training program as a soft diplomat. You emerged as a warrior worthy of the Imperial forces." A hint of a smile crossed his face. "And apparently, you've proven your virility by accomplishing what our geneticists thought impossible." Lera blushed deeply, the crimson of her skin darkening further. "The Emperor himself has expressed interest in this unprecedented development," Thorne continued. "He sees potential for strengthening our alliance with Earth through this union." William could hardly believe what he was hearing. "So have your blessing. You have earned the right to court my daughter properly," Thorne corrected as befits an officer of the Imperial forces. Tar stepped forward holding a folded uniform of black and gold, the colors of the Imperial Special Forces. "Congratulations, Lieutenant Becker," he said using William's new Paraxian military rank. "First human ever to complete the Crucible." As William accepted the uniform, Drav clapped him on the shoulder with enough force to stagger a lesser man. "Not bad for a pink skin," the large Paraxian admitted gruffly. 3 months later, William stood in the grand ceremonial hall of the Imperial Palace, dressed in his Special Forces dress uniform, watching as Lera approached in a flowing silver gown that accentuated both her beauty and her now visible pregnancy. Behind her walked General Thorne, resplendent in his full military regalia, his face set in its usual stern expression, though those who knew him well might have detected a hint of pride in his eyes. The union ceremony combined traditions from both cultures. The Paraxian blood oath of eternal loyalty and the human exchange of rings. As they sealed their vows with a kiss, the assembled dignitaries from both worlds erupted in applause. Ambassador Harrington, watching from the front row, leaned toward his aide. "When I sent Becker on this diplomatic mission, I never imagined it would end like this. A human officer in the Paraxian military married to the general's daughter, with the first human Pyaxian child on the way." The aide mused. "It's unprecedented, it's more than that," Harrington replied, watching as William and Lera moved through the crowd, her hand protectively over her growing belly, his arm supporting her with obvious devotion. "It's the beginning of something new, something neither of our species could have achieved alone." At the reception that followed, General Thorne approached the newlyweds, a rare smile softening his features. "The doctors say it will be a boy," he said, his voice gruff with emotion. "Strong like his grandfather and adaptable like his father," Leor added, squeezing William's hand. William looked between his new wife and his formidable foe-in-law, marveling at the journey that had brought him here. From diplomatic envoy to Special Forces lieutenant, from Lera's secret lover to her husband and the father of her child. "When you sent me to Camp Infarnus," he said to Thorne, "did you ever imagine this outcome?" The general's amber eyes gleamed with something like amusement. "I expected you to wash out within a week. Instead, you proved that humans possess a strength I never anticipated. Not just physical endurance, but something deeper, a will that refuses to break." He raised his glass in a toast. To Lieutenant William Becker and my daughter Lara, may their union bring strength to both our peoples. As the celebration continued, around them, William drew Lara close, his hand resting gently on the swell of her abdomen, where their impossible child grew, living proof that the greatest barriers could be overcome through love, determination, and the unyielding human spirit. "Worth it," Lara whispered, her violet eyes searching his. William smiled, thinking of the challenges they'd faced and those still to come. Raising a child who would bridge two worlds, navigating the complexities of their different cultures, building a life together in the midst of interstellar politics. Every moment he replied, sealing his answer with a